So the next thing we need to do is kind of figure out how we can really convert our code so it starts working with this new setup that we made and start actually saving and retrieving data from the database that we created. Before we do that, I just want to talk a little bit about promises. Now, a promise is something that you promise me to do, or it's something in code where you say, I want you to do something, and when you're done, will you promise me to give a reply later? That's actually what a promise is. Now, notice right here, he's actually using the async keyword and the await keyword a lot in these examples right here. Now we're going to do the same, but before we do, I just want to talk a little bit about what it's all about and what a promise actually is. We'll go back to this drawing right here that I made earlier, and here we're going to try and just make a small word right here called a promise. That's how you spell it, at least. Now a promise has a couple of methods that we're going to use. One of the methods is going to be the then method, another method is going to be the catch method, and the final method is going to be the finally method. Now let's have a look at how it actually works and why it works the way it does. First of all, again, think of it this way. When we are talking again with our database right here, there's some kind of request going on to another tier, right? So it would be something like this. We send a request to another tier like this. We send it over the wire somewhere, and then it's kind of ending up right here at this database somehow. Now, after some time has passed, the database will say, I found what you're requiring. I'll just send that back to you. So I'll go again back to the wire right here. Let's just add a line. There we go. I'll send this back to you. And in the end, you'll hopefully get it right here so you can use it to whatever you need it for, right? But the problem is we don't know how much time. It could take 5 milliseconds. It could also take a lot more depending on how much pressure is on our Postgres backend right now. So we really don't know how much time it would take. Now, if we did not use some kind of async communication with the backend, we would have to wait for that time until we got a reply. So maybe the server would be kind of locked for, let's just say, 100 milliseconds, and nobody else could do anything for that time. It would just lock the main thread. Now that would be bad. We don't want it to be locked down. That would mean for this amount of time, nobody else would be able to contact us. Nobody else would be able to do anything. They would just be like holding for us until we got that message back. So if this was synchronous, it would pretty much say, send the request and wait. Wait. Nobody else can do anything. We're just blocking the main thread. We're just waiting until we are all the way at the Postgres figure out what to do. It returns it to us. And then we can open up the main thread for the next thing we need to do. The same idea starts, and again, lock down everything. And let's just start sending everything, lock down everything. We don't want to do that. So instead, we're going to use the asynchronous way to do it by using, in the old days in JavaScript, we used something called callbacks. So pretty much meaning that every time we did something, we said, I would like to do something, I send a request, and then I opened up a method, a callback method, that at some point said, well, I'm done, so now here's your data that you asked for. But while it did that asynchronously, it actually did not wait. It just continued working, so it said, even though that I sent that request, I don't have to wait for it. I'll just continue doing everything else that I need to do, and the wait time might be here, but I don't care. I'll just asynchronously keep working on the main thread, and at some point when I get the reply, I'll just push this back to the main thread and complete the work and send the reply back to whoever's listening. Okay, so that's how it works with these asynchronous calls compared to the synchronous calls. And we need that. We need asynchronous calls in our system, or else, as I said, we will just keep locking down that main thread and not be able to do anything while we are waiting. Okay? So one thing that came up after these callbacks, because the problem with the callbacks was in JavaScript, they started to become a callback hell. And actually, if you Google callback hell, you can find some pretty neat articles about that. Just go and check it out. So somebody came up with something even better, and that was the promises. So we went from the callbacks to the promises. Let's just change this into promises instead. Now it's the exact same idea as the callback. What we're going to do is we're going to send a request. We're not going to block the main thread. We're going to send a request, and when we're done, we're either going to hit the method of then, meaning that everything was well, so when you get the promise, then what should I do, right? Or we would hit the catch, which would be kind of what to do when something goes wrong. Or we would hit the finally, pretty much meaning that no matter what, we're done now, we are done. So this would be no matter if it was a catch or it was then we would go down here and just wrap everything up if needed. So that's how promises work, and that's what we're going to try and work with in the next lesson. So just a quick recap. A promise is when we kind of say, I want to do something, I want to execute something, like I want to get all my clients, but instead of waiting synchronously for that reply to come back, I'll send an async call using a promise that says, give me all clients, the database will take its time, we don't care how much. When it replies, it'll call the then method if everything went well. If something failed, it'll call the catch method with the actual information we need, either with the actual list of clients or with an error about what went wrong. And when everything is done, it'll call the finally method saying, I'm completely done now. So that's how a promise works. And again, there are plenty of guides out there on promises. Go and check it out. What I'll do next lesson is I'll try and use a promise, and I'll actually combine it with something called async await, so we can actually make the code easier to read, even though there are promises involved. So that's it for this lesson. See you next time. Bye.